Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we are really zeroing in on a terrifying investigation. It's one that fuses this futuristic New York City technology with, well, the raw, brutal pathology of a serial killer.
We're taking the deepest possible plunge into the source material that describes one of Lieutenant Eve Dallas's most physically and, I think, emotionally grueling cases.
Right, and our mission today is to really unpack the investigation into a killer who becomes known as the Blue Killer.
It's just a masterclass in modern forensics.
Yeah.
You have this blend of, detailed psychological profiling, but then there's this shock of a personal betrayal that just comes out of nowhere.
And it all centers around this woman with these unique psychic gifts who could be, well, either the greatest asset or maybe the most dangerous liability to the whole operation.
This is a real knife's edge.
And to start, I think we have to establish the world of our lead investigator, Eve Dallas, because she lives in this state of, well, profound duality. The source material captures it so well.
Oh, absolutely. On one hand, she's this formidable, kick-ass murder cop. Street smart, she drives this beat-up vehicle. She's completely immersed in the grime and tragedy of murder. That is where she is comfortable.
That's her natural element. But then she has to pivot. She's married to Rourke, who is this impossibly wealthy, powerful corporate titan.
And suddenly she has to transform into the fashionable corporate wife.
Oh.
The sources really detail the immense strain this puts on her, especially having to go to these, high society functions.
It's so out of her element.
Completely. And Rourke, in his loving but also very controlling way, has her entire outfit laid out for her.
Yeah.
He's making sure she meets the standard. And this includes, hilariously, what she calls the laughingly called underwear.
Right, these fancy, unnecessary items that just represent everything she's resistant to.
Exactly. That tension, that constant fight against external control, even when it's meant to be benign.
Yeah.
It sets the perfect psychological stage for the type of killer she's about to hunt.
A killer who is all about ultimate brutal control.
Precisely. Her job is her true self. And that job begins tonight in Central Park.
It does. The first victim is Elisa Maplewood, and she's found in a spot that just epitomizes that New York paradox.
By day, it's a picturesque tourist haven, right?
Yeah.
But at night, the sources describe it as the domain of street sleepers, chemi-heads, unlicensed companions on the troll. It's a forgotten, dark place.
And the initial victim profile immediately throws up a contradiction. Elisa is Caucasian, about 32, and her address: Central Park West, a location that just screams wealth.
But Dallas spots the incongruities right away. She just doesn't look like she belongs uptown. Her hands are visibly calloused, no signs of pampering, and she definitely hasn't had a recent pedicure.
Her instincts are dead on. The record confirms Maplewood was a live-in domestic for the very wealthy Vanderlee family.
And that's the first critical piece of insight for you as a listener to grab onto. The killer isn't targeting wealth or status. He's targeting a symbol. The location, the appearance of affluence, that was all just circumstantial.
And the method of death. It's ritualistic. It's profoundly horrifying. She was raped and then strangled with this highly specific item, a red corded ribbon.
But the real moment of realization for Dallas, the moment the case shifts from, a typical assault to this complex pathological hunt, is the mutilation.
He took her eyes.
He took her eyes. They were the prize. And what makes this detail even more chilling is the description of how they were removed. They weren't torn out in a frenzy.
No.
They were removed with neat, precise cuts, almost surgical. This tells Dallas this was not a crime of passion. This was calculated, it was ritualistic, a symbolic act carried out with total deliberation.
This killer has a terrifying level of control over his actions, even during and after the murder. The surgical precision, that choice of the red ribbon, the symbolic location, it's all designed to send a very specific, frightening message.
Absolutely. The pathology is just elevated the moment the surgical detail is noted.
Yeah.
It forces the investigation to look way beyond common motivations like, simple sexual sadism,
Right.
and toward a structured symbolic quest.
Okay, so let's unpack this scene a bit more. We're in section 1 now, establishing the pattern and getting that initial psychological profile. So Dallas is examining the body on this heap of rocks, and she instantly knows this isn't the primary murder scene.
Right.
What tipped her off? What was the physical evidence that told her this was a dump site?
It really just came down to the mechanics of the crime and the environment. Maplewood was found on this steep pile of rocks.
Yeah.
And Dallas, she correctly reasoned that the struggle, the rape, the strangulation, it couldn't have happened cleanly right there.
There would have been signs of a struggle. Scrapes, blood trails.
Exactly. Too much scraping, blood trails, debris that just wasn't consistent with how the body was presented. The actual attack, she figures, likely happened nearby on a level surface, maybe a gravelly path or a sidewalk,
Mm.
and then the body had to be carried.
And that carrying is a huge physical clue for us. The victim weighed about 130 pounds, which, when someone is deceased, is famously difficult to transport.
It's dead weight, literally. So the killer had to drag or carry that weight up and down a small cliff of rocks to get to the dump site.
So what's the first major physical deduction about the killer?
That he required significant muscle and bulk. Dallas immediately notes this needs serious strength. Not just average strength, but the kind of strength that's maintained through serious, regular exercise.
So that simple mechanical fact, just moving a body, instantly narrows the physical search profile.
Massively. And then you get to the posing. The body wasn't just dumped, it was deliberately arranged. Dallas notes it was posed, praying, begging, resting in peace.
It's such a horrifying juxtaposition. You have this extreme violence, and then it's followed by this ritualistic care.
Well, what's fascinating here is how the killer processes his victims. The sexual assault, the defensive wounds on her forearms and face, the pure, unbridled rage you can see in the physical trauma
Yeah.
that speaks to a profound contempt for women.
He sees them as objects to punish.
Right. But then, the posing and the careful removal of the eyes, that suggests an underlying awe, or, maybe more accurately, a fetishistic reverence for the symbol they represent.
It's that Madonna, queen, or horror imagery, isn't it? He's punishing what he despises, but he's also ritualizing what he obsesses over.
Exactly. And the murder weapon ties directly into that symbolism. It's a red corded ribbon. The sources point out how generic it is. You can get it in any department store, any gift wrap section, which makes it nearly untraceable at first. But the color is everything.
Which is where Dr. Mira, the lead psychological consultant, comes in. She immediately hones in on the symbolism of the color red.
She does. Mira's analysis suggests the killer is profoundly angry and violent, with that rage specifically targeted toward women who fit his symbolic schema. The red ribbon is not an accident. It's a deliberate choice.
Scarlet, the brand for whores.
That's it. This suggests the killer views his victims as fallen women, women deserving of punishment, for reasons that are linked to some foundational trauma in his own life, almost certainly involving a female figure.
A mother figure, probably.
Almost always. And because Maplewood was symbolic rather than a specific target, Mira's danger assessment is sky high. She concludes his work isn't finished, and he's organized enough to have already selected his next victim.
And just as they're processing this, the investigation takes a wild detour. A sensitive just walks in off the street.
Celina Sanchez.
Yeah.
And Dallas's internal reaction is immediate, visceral cynicism. She hates anything she sees as woo-woo, but she has no choice. She has to listen.
Celina's visit is unsolicited, and she doesn't claim she had a dream. She says it was a vision.
But wait, if Celina's vision was so accurate, why did Dallas struggle with the woo-woo element so much? Was it just a risk of false data, or was it purely Dallas's own distrust of anything she can't touch?
I think it was Dallas's deep devotion to pure forensic evidence. She's a woman of logic, of facts.
Right. But Celina starts providing details that are not public knowledge, and it forces Dallas to confront the intangible. Celina says she saw Elisa walking her dog, a detail they only just confirmed. She felt the killer's excitement, which she called red, dark, vicious red, and contrasted it with the victim's silver light of fear.
And she saw the attack itself. The man emerging from the shadows, the first blow, and the detail that just broke Peabody's heart. He violently kicked the dog away before dragging the victim.
The detail about the cord is the key validation, though. Celina describes the cord tied tight, and she echoes Mira's symbolism without even knowing it. Red for power, red for death.
But the climax of her vision is the most disturbing part. The part that proves Celina was truly inside the killer's psychological space.
What's that?
She describes him cutting out the eyes, placing them in a small pouch, and then leaning down to kiss the victim's bloody mouth. Celina says she woke up with the chill of that bloody mouth on mine.
Wow. And Dallas hadn't released any details about a mutilation pouch or any post-mortem interaction with the face.
Exactly. That level of verifiable, intimate detail, despite all of Dallas's prejudices, it made Celina, in her own words, the best lead I've got.
So that shifts the focus entirely. Her professionalism overrides her cynicism, and she has to use every tool, even one that makes her deeply uncomfortable. It also sets up a really dangerous dynamic, trusting someone who can literally enter the mind of a killer.
Now let's pivot into section 2, because Dallas has this realization that a killer with this level of ritual and control, well, he doesn't just start with such a clean operation. Maplewood was probably not his first.
Exactly. She goes on the hunt for what she calls practice sessions. She gets on her computer, starts cross-referencing recent missing persons cases, and she's looking specifically for women who match Maplewood's basic physical type. Same age, same coloring, same build.
She's looking for the killer's early attempts, the ones that might have just gone cold.
And her intuition is spot on. They immediately connect two women. The first is Marjorie Cates, age 32, a restaurant manager who disappeared back in April.
Yeah.
Cates was deep in planning her wedding.
And her apartment suggested a passion that investigators might normally overlook.
Handcrafts.
Yeah.
A quilt. Folk art.
Mm-hmm.
And then her electronic records show transactions at places like Total Crafts.
And the second woman, Breen Merriweather, missing in June, was a studio worker, excited about a vacation with her son. When they go into her apartment, her activity room also has craft supplies.
And this is where Peabody, who is just brilliant with small details, finds samples of the exact same red corded ribbon that was used to kill Maplewood.
Wow.
This is the crucial victim profile element. It links all three women, and it fundamentally changes their search. They were all single mothers or unmarried, and they were all avid craftswomen frequenting the same specific local craft stores. Total Crafts, so what?
So that reveals the stalking environment.
Yes. The killer wasn't trolling bars or dating apps. He was stalking locations associated with their quiet, domestic hobbies. It suggests he understood, and maybe even resented, this pursuit of self-expression.
That detail about the hobby is just chilling. It suggests incredible patience and meticulousness in how he chose them. He didn't just stumble on them. He sought out women who embodied a certain domestic, creative energy.
It suggests the selection process was based on their internal life, not just how they looked on the surface. And meanwhile, the physical search continues to narrow based on that initial deduction we talked about.
The muscle and bulk needed to move Maplewood's body.
Right. The focus shifts to creating a physical profile for this man, who they now know must be seriously strong. Dallas reasons he has to work out regularly and seriously.
So this leads to a massive operational shift. They start investigating these hardcore, testosterone-focused fitness facilities, places dedicated to building bulk, not just, general fitness. They zero in on places like Jim's Gym.
But the physical profile also includes a critical, mundane detail they found at the crime scene, a specific tread pattern that suggested a very large footprint.
Leading to the theory that the killer wore a size 15 shoe.
A size 15 shoe. I mean, that's enormous. That puts him in a very, very small percentile of the population.
Absolutely. This allowed the investigators to come up with the theory of enormous guys are us. They start cross-referencing gym memberships with specific clothing and shoe stores that cater to men of this immense size. They recognize this is a small, traceable market.
For instance, they find a guy named Kurt Richards, a 7-foot former Knicks player who manages a shoe store. That seemingly trivial detail, the shoe size, becomes a digital key to unlocking his identity later on.
But while they're meticulously cross-referencing all this data, the killer, maybe sensing the net tightening, he radically speeds up his schedule, and we see this clear escalation with the discovery of the fourth victim, Lily Napier.
The change in pacing is a huge psychological alarm bell. Napier is found in Memorial Park, killed just after 2 in the morning. The time between killings has shrunk from 2 months to just a few weeks.
Which suggests the killer is either panicking or his need for this ritual release has just intensified beyond his control. The organization is starting to slip. The rage is taking over, and the violence confirms it. The pattern is identical: rape, strangulation with the ribbon, eye removal, but the violence to the face and body is increasing. Morris, the medical examiner, he confirms the escalating rage. It's not just surgical anymore. The violence before it is less controlled.
And the posing changes slightly, too. It's reflecting a more personal statement now.
It is. Napier's body was laid out on a bench near a memorial that specifically symbolizes strength in adversity and manly men. The killer is now explicitly making a statement about his own perceived dominance and power.
Maybe he's directly challenging the authority that's trying to catch him.
That's a great point. This shift in frequency and rage, it signals that the investigation has to move beyond just digital records and into the killer's immediate sphere of activity, because he is no longer being patient.
That urgency brings us straight to Section 3, where the psychological profile hits its first major anomaly and the investigation becomes intensely personal. The killer attacks one of their own.
The fifth victim, Elisa Summers, is discovered soon after. She's found in Greenpeace Park. The level of violence is, again, ratcheted up, broken nose, several teeth broken, just pure, unchecked rage. She was posed near a statue of farmers, Ma and Pa Farmer.
And this is where the pattern breaks, or at least it seems to. Annalisa Summers was the current girlfriend of Lucas Grande, who is Celina Sanchez's ex-lover.
Right. So while the location and the method fit Blue's pattern, the target herself seems highly personal. It's not like the symbolic horror victims Blue had focused on. This immediately throws up a flag that maybe the profile is a little off or something external is manipulating the situation.
The investigators also found this truly bizarre, clean piece of physical evidence: fibers on Summers' clothing. They're identified as being from a droid pet, feline, common tabby.
And Harvo, the lab tech, noted the fibers were immaculate. They were pristine. It suggested the electronic animal was brand new, maybe a very recent gift or purchase. And this seemingly insignificant item is going to become profoundly important later on.
So, to solidify the visual description of the attacker, which Celina had previously struggled with, giving only vague feelings, Dallas brings Celina in for a hypnotherapy session with Dr. Mira.
This is Dallas completely crossing her own line. She's now relying on a deeply woo-woo method to get verifiable details.
But under hypnosis, Celina delivers. She revisits the Maplewood attack, but with much better clarity on the killer. She describes him as having smooth, dark skin, suggesting he was mixed race, brown skin, or tanned. He has a smooth dome, he's bald, and critically, he wears dark shades.
The dark shades are the immediate visual link back to his obsession with sight and with blinding his victims. The description refines the profile from just big, beefy guy to something highly specific and actionable.
But before they can even really use this enhanced sketch, the killer makes the fatal mistake of attacking law enforcement.
The attack on Detective Peabody isn't just a physical assault. It's a profound violation of the investigative bubble. John Blue turns his pure rage directly on the police department, violently assaulting Peabody near her apartment as she's coming home.
And his motive was clear vengeance, wasn't it? It was rooted in his massive ego and this need for control.
Oh, completely. He was enraged, pissed, as the source material states, and he felt personally threatened by the media coverage. Specifically, a Channel 75 interview where 3 women cops, including Peabody, discussed the case and openly condemned his actions.
So he targeted Peabody to prove a point, to show he was still in charge.
McNabb, Peabody's partner, was in the apartment and heard the chaos. He rushes down and confirms the attacker was the big, beefy guy, bald, sunshades. A visual identity now fully confirmed. He sees Blue kicking Peabody and then trying to haul her into a waiting dark van.
The detail here that just speaks volumes about Peabody's strength is that despite being violently thrown down and severely injured, she maintained her grip on her weapon and managed to get a shot off.
Witnesses confirm she might have hit him in the arm. She was unconscious and bleeding, but she held the line. That tenacity is what saved her life and ultimately what provided the final evidence they needed.
And the department is galvanized. The emotional weight of this attack means it's no longer just a case.
Right. Feeney, the head of EDD and Dallas's mentor, he just perfectly encapsulates the feeling. There's not one badge in the city who won't put in the time to track him now he came after one of ours.
This collective fury, combined with the hard evidence, the confirmed physical description, the injured arm, and witness details of the dark, new, really clean van, it just creates the perfect storm for a rapid capture.
The net has gone from these wide digital searches to a targeted, intensely personal hunt.
This rapid convergence of rage and technology leads us directly to Section 4, the capture of John Blue and the horrific discovery of his trophy room. With the enhanced sketch Yancey created and the precise witness vehicle description, the combined digital teams, led by the incomparable duo of Feeney and Rourke, they just start cross-referencing every single data point.
And this is where all that initial forensic work pays off massively. Rourke and Feeney link the specialty store consumer lists, specifically the size 15 shoes and the craft store receipts, to the gym membership lists. John Blue was a 10-year member of Jim's Gym Downtown.
Meaning he was exercising in Manhattan, the stalking ground, but listing his residence somewhere else.
Exactly. And the identity is revealed. John Joseph Blue, age 31. His lifted residence for 8 years was a Brooklyn address where he ran a small data analysis company, ComTrain, Inc.
Which perfectly explains his hacking ability and the operational skills he needed to plan these meticulous crimes.
But Dallas, who was always suspicious of a killer's operational setup, she pushes to find the true residence, the place he actually operated from. And the digital trail leads them to the Fulton address of his mother, Ineza Blue.
And the source material states Ineza was a retired licensed companion. For clarity for you listening, in this future New York, a licensed companion is a regulated sex worker.
That context is critical. The mother's profession immediately links the killer's childhood trauma, the source of his rage, to the symbolic targeting of women he perceives as whores.
He was stalking women who embodied the femininity he had been taught to despise and fear. It all traces back to that Fulton address.
So with the location confirmed, 2 tactical teams are deployed. The main force, led by Dallas and Rourke, heads to Fulton. The confrontation is swift and it is physical. Blue is discovered and restrained. Dallas, in an act of pure desperation and rage, even pulls a muscle in her leg during a powerful kick to take him down.
The physical fight is intense, but the true psychological horror is found in the house, specifically in the basement.
Dallas immediately deduces the basement was his childhood prison. They find a child-sized chair with wrist and ankle shackles, and they're tied with that same telltale red cloth.
His original prison, the physical space where the abuse and control began, linking the psychological trauma directly to the physical space of his adult crimes.
And right next to this chilling memorial to his own abuse is the purpose-built trophy case. A new, clean shelf on the wall. The description is just profoundly disturbing. It speaks to the meticulous control he craved.
15 clear jars, each one filled with a pale blue preserving liquid.
And in each jar, a pair of eyes floated. 15 pairs of eyes. This immediately confirms the bodies of Cates and Merriweather were among the missing. The body count is confirmed at 15. The surgical precision, the patience, the planning, it was all leading to this horrifying collection.
It's the ultimate act of seizing the victim's ability to witness or to judge him.
The interrogation is the final act of this psychological trauma play. John Blue, he's initially defiant and arrogant. He calls Dallas Lieutenant Bitch, but he breaks when she confronts him about the core wound, his mother, Ineza Blue, and the nature of the abuse.
And his motive is just laid bare. It's all control and punishment, rooted in a childhood where his mother beat me with his fists or whatever was handy and raped him. The symbolic murder of women was a complete ritualistic retaliation against his origin story.
And the purpose of the eyes. He confesses with this chilling simplicity. She only sees what I tell her to see now. He takes the eyes so he can have that part of her.
He confessed to the entire methodology, raping, beating, strangling, and mutilating all 15 women. They continued the search and confirmed the bodies of his earlier victims were buried in the backyard of the Fulton house.
So Blue is caged. The case is solved. The department can breathe. They have the trophy room, the motive, and the confession for 15 brutal murders.
But the investigators are immediately faced with a single, massive, nagging anomaly.
You're right, you would think the case is closed, but this is where the source material delivers this massive, unexpected twist in Section 5. The secondary killer is revealed. John Blue had a solid, verifiable alibi for the most recent killing, Elisa Summers.
That anomaly, the murder of Summers, was just inconsistent with Blue's established methodology. He had a predictable 2-month pattern. The Summers murder happened way too quickly after the previous one.
And the target, the current girlfriend of Celina Sanchez's ex-lover, Lucas Grande, was just too personal for Blue's symbolic targeting.
So Dallas realized the answer wasn't in the trophies or the gym list, it was in the peripheral data, and specifically with the person who had been closest to the evidence all along.
Celina Sanchez.
Yeah.
The sensitive.
Celina had provided verifiable details, but she had also inserted herself directly into the investigation.
Dallas and Rourke confront Celina Sanchez at Dr. Mira's office. And this is a brilliant moment of investigative chess. It's a calculated mix of fact and intimidation, and it's designed to break a highly intelligent, manipulative killer.
They don't have definitive proof yet, but they have anomalies. And Rourke, the master of digital systems, reveals the first critical piece of evidence. Celina's security footage showed she never left her front door.
But Rourke knew she had access to the downstairs apartment because there were no current tenants. He realized she used an alternate, unmonitored exit. She was hiding her movements.
And Dallas delivers the clincher. She connects the symbolic murder weapon back to the sensitive herself. A specific craft store clerk remembered Celina, a striking woman, buying 3 yards of red-corded ribbon 4 months prior.
Well, before the Maplewood murder was even public, but precisely when Blue was operating on his 2-month cycle.
It's irrefutable proof of premeditation and direct knowledge of the killer's specific, highly unusual weapon.
And Celina is just shattered. She confesses, revealing the depth of her dangerous obsession. She admits she saw John Blue kill Breen Merriweather victim number 5, and bury her in the backyard. She used her gift not to aid justice, but to fuel a dark personal pathology.
Her primary motive for killing Elisa Summers was intensely personal rage. She was furious that her ex-lover, Lucas Grande, was seriously dating Summers.
So she leveraged Blue's existing pattern, the ribbon, and the park location to kill Annalisa, specifically staging it to look like the work of the serial killer she knew was about to be caught.
The audacity is just stunning. She came forward to Dallas after her own murder, the murder of Elisa Summers, to guide the police away from herself and accelerate Blue's capture.
She was using a serial killer as her camouflage.
Unbelievable. When Dallas presents the final fact, Celina tries to rationalize it, claiming she did it for love of Lucas. But Dallas just cuts through the self-deception with brutal clarity.
Yeah.
You did it for yourself, for control, for power, for selfishness.
Celina Sanchez, the sensitive who could see into the minds of others, used her unique power and intellect for calculated revenge.
And so the conclusion is tragic, but justice is served completely. John Blue is caged for 15 murders. Celina Sanchez is arrested for the murder of Elisa Summers, victim number 16.
And in a fitting tribute to her courage and tenacity, Dallas gives the collar for Celina's arrest to the injured but recovering Detective Peabody. The case is finally closed.
Wow. This deep dive into the source material just shows the immense breadth of this investigation. You have to mix microfibers, size 15 shoe deductions, and detailed digital forensics with this profound psychological analysis and even, reluctantly psychic insight.
What stands out to me is the sheer resilience required to process this level of pathology. You have the raw physical violence inflicted on Peabody, who fought back while bleeding out.
And you have Dallas, who drove herself to the point of collapse. She needed oblivion after confronting the horror of those 15 pairs of eyes, yet she never, ever gave up her fight for justice.
The horrific discovery of Blue's collection, that shackle chair, and his confession of using the victims to gain ultimate control over his mother's influence is a story of profound brokenness. But the greatest revelation, perhaps, is that two killers were operating almost simultaneously, and both were driven by the exact same core mechanism, just masked in different forms.
They both wanted control. Blue used ritualistic rage from past trauma. Sanchez used cold calculation and her special gift to exact revenge based on present jealousy.
Precisely. This entire case centered on the themes of control and choice. John Blue used his past trauma as an excuse to seize control through spectacular ritualistic violence against symbols of his mother.
And Celina Sanchez used her gift and her intellect, her own unique power, to seize control over a personal relationship through a cold, calculated murder that hid behind Blue's pattern.
And it raises this crucial question for all of us, a question that really lingers long after the final caller is made. When we are given power or strength, whether that's physical capability, a sharp intellect, or even a unique, intangible gift, how thin is the line between using it for protection and using it for selfish, destructive control?
The difference between a victim who seeks justice, like Dallas, and a killer who seeks revenge, like Blue and Sanchez, is ultimately defined by where they choose to draw that moral line.
Something for you to mull over.
A profound thought to end on. Thank you for diving deep with us. We'll see you next time.